Ladies and gentlemen, game makers of all sorts. It's lovely to be here once again. I think this is the the last time I said what number Game Maker Meetup this was. Colin, can we, I don't want to hear these guys. Can you just cut them out? But seriously, yeah, can you take them out the speakers?
No, we're taking them out of the recording.
As in, could you not have them in the speakers? Please. Thank you. Grand. Thank you. So this is Game Maker Meetup number 4, is that right? I always lose track of these things. Last time I said 4, it was number 3. It was very embarrassing for me. Everyone else laughed. It was, I wake up screaming. I hate myself right now. It's wonderful to be down here at Secret Weapon again. The staff have been very helpful in terms of setting up all the computers and making sure we can actually get in the bar, even if there was a bit of a miscommunication. These things happen. I'd also like to thank anybody who's donated money over the last 4 months. It's because of very kind donations that we're encouraged to keep doing this. And it's because of those kind donations that we were able to lay on a little bit of a feast today with the meatballs. It's most appreciated. Quang and Jupiter did an awful lot of work this morning, cooking everything for us, which is absolutely incredible. And I feel very lucky to have such wonderful people here with me. And I'd also like to thank everybody else just for turning up. Anybody who's demonstrating games. No, there's not one there. There's some over there. There's another game over there. There's loads of them. I haven't played all of them yet, and I hope to before I leave, and I hope everyone else gets to play some games too. So we're going to have a talk later from Quang. It's about resolution scaling in games, I believe, isn't it? I think so, yeah. I didn't actually read the notes. It's fine. I give him a scan, it's fine. But beforehand, unfortunately, we had somebody drop out. We had Gary Napper was meant to talk today. Unfortunately, his little kid was a little bit ill yesterday. So Gary is quite rightly taking care of them. So instead, we're going to have an impromptu interview with 3 fantastic GameMaker developers. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be great. I'm going to ask all kinds of awkward questions. They're not going to know how to respond to any of them. So first up, we have Adrian, all the way from Paris, France. Yep. Then we have Dave. I can't remember where Dave comes from, actually. Hertfordshire. Oh, fantastic. Yep. He's from Britain. He's from England, like the rest of us. And then Hannes is all the way from Munich in Germany. It's kind of exciting to have such an international group of people find their way here. It's really something quite special. So I think the first thing, the most obvious question that we should probably ask each one of you in turn, why did you start using GameMaker? Like, where does it all start? Let's go for Adrian first.
Oh God, I think it was middle school or something like that. Like, I used to draw games like on paper, and one day I discovered that there was something called the internet. So the first thing I looked for was how do I make my own video game, and I found GameMaker. That's how it started. It started in 2000 and maybe 2 or something, maybe 2001. I'm not sure. A long time ago.
Oh, cool. So that's what, 16 years ago now, isn't it? Yeah. So how about you, Dave? When did you start?
So mine's actually the opposite. Is that only about 2 years ago, a friend of mine showed me GameMaker. He was like, "We should try making a game in this." And because I was a kind of professional programmer, contractor, I already knew the programming side of it, and I picked it up, and it was just super easy. It was like, if I'd have written my own programming language, it would look like GameMaker. So I just picked up, and it just came so naturally to me.
Oh, that's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. But all the other people I talked to, they're like, "Oh, I've been using GameMaker, since version 8 or 5."
Version 6.
Yeah. Whereas I'm like, "Oh no, I've only been doing it like 2 years, guys."
That's super cool. And Hannes, what about yourself?
Yeah, I can emphasize with Dave. I started 2 years ago, but with 0 programming knowledge. The only programming we did was in university for 1 semester, and it was extremely basic. We learned to add numbers. And in terms of where my motivation comes from, I just used to play games a lot, and at some point I was really worried that I wasn't really doing anything in life, getting anywhere with it. So I just sat down and thought to myself, I can do this myself as well. I'll just take the motivation to play games and convert it into something useful by making them and teaching myself to code.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I ended up here.
So Dave, did you learn to do programming at university?
Yeah, I did, but I always had a kind of like a knack for it, or I always enjoyed doing it. So even before university, and did computer science in university, and that's just how it grew from there.
Fantastic. And what about yourself, Adrian? Because I mean, I guess you started many years ago.
I had no idea it was even called coding. I wanted to make a game. I was using the drag and drop functions of GameMaker, and it was great. And like, it took me a while to get to learn how to code. And now I think I know most aspects of it, but I'm still learning, always learning.
When do you think? Excuse me. When do you think that you kind of grew out of drag and drop? Was it something that happened kind of gradually, or was it just one day you went, nah?
Yeah, I think that one day, it's the day I discovered 3D, because you can't actually do 3D in GameMaker without drag and drop. So I just decided to start learning code because I needed to learn code to make 3D games, and it just flowed naturally.
Hannes, did you? Oh, sorry, Dave. Go on.
No, I was going to say that the drag and drop, when I started using it, because like I said, I was a professional programmer, I was like, I'm only going to use the drag and drop. I don't want to do programming for a hobby and for work. But because I could just find snippets online and be like, yeah, that's what I want to do, and then edit it myself, really quickly I was just moved on from the drag and drop stuff and just like writing my own code.
Yeah. What about yourself, Hannes? Was drag and drop something that you even worried about at the beginning?
To be honest, I never touched it. To be fair, I started off with a video game series called Making Games 101, and he used code immediately, so I just started off using code and never touched the drag and drop functions.
Do you remember who that was? Was that Sean?
No.
No, I don't think it was it?
Can't remember his name now.
Yeah.
Afraid not.
I mean, how useful were YouTube tutorials? Because it sounds like this was a YouTube series.
Yeah, it was a YouTube series. It was extremely helpful to me. The way I approached it is, I watched their videos and then halfway through I stopped it and I thought, this is stupid. I'd rather try this myself. I wrote my own functions for it, which were really large. And then they showed me, GameMaker has a built-in function for this. I kind of fell off my chair. Shit, okay, I'm going to use this now. That's how I learned the GameMaker language gradually.
Yeah, and some of the features that drag and drop has in GMS 2, I think especially, they're much more extended compared to GMS 1. But I must admit, I haven't actually used drag and drop for years.
I'm a bit the same. Is that sometimes I just write my own functions, and I sent one to you like a few months back, and you're like, this has already been written. Why didn't you Google this first? It was finding a collision point on a line. I've done this. I've done it in a really intelligent way. And you're like, people have done this, Dave. Why are you doing it again?
I had the same thing, a very similar one.
Well, at least now you know where it works.
Right.
No, it's just that at some point I wrote a really long bit of code trying to put some pathfinding, some A-star algorithm, something like that. And then I looked up on GameMaker, how to convert a path into whatever movement patterns. And I found out that there was actually motion planning in GameMaker. There's one function that does everything.
The guy who originally made GameMaker, Professor Mark Overmars, he was actually a professor of motion planning. So the motion planning algorithm in GameMaker isn't quite A-star. It kind of is, but it's not absolutely identical.
It works.
Yeah, it works. And even Hyperlight Drifter uses the internal motion planning, like all the default stuff.
You can't beat it, though.
Yeah, like A-star is A-star, right?
I've tried multiple times beating it in terms of speed. It's not possible.
I think that was one of our first conversations, wasn't it?
Yeah,
we did that motion plan stuff. That's really interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, one of the places I get lots of snippets from is gmlscripts.com. Which is run by my buddy John Leffingwell, and he's absolutely incredible. He's been running that website, I think, 6-7 years. It might even be 10 years at this point. So where do you guys find your code? Where do you find your little snippets and help with some of the programming you're trying to do?
Well, no, like I said, I tend to just write them all, and then I show it to someone like you, and you're like, no, it's already on the snippets website. Why have you rewritten this? And we've done it the same way, by the way.
Yeah, the binary search, yeah. What about yourself, Hannes?
Most of the time it's the same story. So I tend to grab a piece of paper and write out all the ideas and then try to find the code for it. And that works most of the time. The times I do fail, it's often there's a solution on GML scripts.
Yeah.
Which is kind of disappointing.
Such a good way. Well, right. Yeah, you kind of get excited that you found a new way of doing it.
There's some really awesome functions there. For example, the bias function is pretty neat.
Yeah, it is nice with the curve behavior.
It makes a curve kind of like smooth interpolation between 0 and 1.
Yeah, that's really nice. What about yourself, Adrian?
I usually just Google whatever I need. Like Google how to do something in GameMaker, and I found a piece of code somewhere, and I steal it shamelessly.
Oh, yeah.
And it's by doing that I learned. Like I've been using GameMaker for over 10 years easily, and I think it was 2 years ago I learned what local variables were. I never used. I always use instant variables and sometimes global, but I actually started using local variables 2 years ago.
That's insane. So do you think that there needs to be better communication of stuff like that then? Because that seems like that's a major feature.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure about the whole communication aspect of GameMaker.
The information is out there, I think.
It exists.
Yeah. you have to come to meetings like this to get talks, and that's how you find the kind of deep level stuff.
Do you think some people here actually are going to try to Google what local variables are, or was that
yeah,
only
probably
me?
actually. Yeah. Like, you can make them local now. What a world we live in. Yeah, I mean, like the way that I learned to use GameMaker was by trying to make games and then failing spectacularly. It sounds like Hannes's approach has been much more considered, where you've kind of gone through YouTube videos and kind of built up a stock of information. What about you two? Like, what's been your process to learn?
You go first.
Oh, well, I'm not even sure what my answer would be, because some of the things I might have taken from other languages beforehand, and if I go back to the same example, I might have looked for a point on a line, collision line before, and I've done that in different languages, so kind of just knew good ways of doing it. So yeah.
Do you feel like there's a lot of similarity between GameMaker and other languages?
Definitely. But I think all programming kind of has that. Once you know a few languages, it's kind of just syntactical and grammatical changes. Yeah.
What sort of programming languages do you think GameMaker is most similar to? Because I mean, some of them like C++, just not very similar at all. But maybe that's unfair. I don't know.
It's like, even things like Java and stuff, it has similarities. It has similarities to PHP and other languages like that. Yeah, it's not so far detached from other standard languages.
Anyway, sorry, we kind of went off on a tangent there. So what was your sort of process to learn how to make games?
I actually had a really unhealthy process, which is having an idea for a video game, starting it, learning whatever it is I need to make this game, and then getting bored with it and starting a new project. I have something like 100 of those.
But that's a healthy thing to do, though.
Sounds familiar, yeah.
If you're working on a project you're really excited for, I think that's a very good thing to do. If you start burning out on the project, moving on to something fresh and new is a really good way to enjoy the hobby, or it might be more than a hobby, for a longer period of time.
Yeah, this is exactly one of my projects, which is actually on screen over there. One of the longest games I've ever made was, I decided that, hey, I have to stop stopping games. I have to finish something. And so I decided that whenever I had a new idea, instead of making a new game, I would just add it to the already existing game. Yeah. And it ended up being chaos, but I like it.
A series of mini games. So you mentioned the GameMaker, some people treat it as a hobby, some people treat it as more. Is using GameMaker as more than a hobby something that you're thinking about, or is that something you've already done?
I haven't already done it. My current project I'm working on is receiving extraordinary feedback, to be honest. So it does get me thinking whether I should sit down and actually consider pursuing this as something that could end up on Kickstarter, and then however that goes.
Oh, I was going to say, for me, I'm probably almost there. I think I'd probably like to try and make the transition, if I haven't already. But kind of on that same kind of thread, I think I'd like to see more things made in GameMaker that are not even games. I think that GameMaker could legitimately be used to do, apps on phones that aren't game-related. They might be productivity apps or other kind of apps, or, Windows applications, Mac, Linux applications.
I know a guy off the Discord server where he used GameMaker as a stock taking tool for a plumber. So the plumber would be like, oh, I need to buy this size of PVC piping, whatever the hell he's doing. And it was all built on GameMaker, and the back end was, I think it was running on a CSV file of some description. And the whole thing, was a utility.
But I think that trying to bridge the gap between a hobbyist and professional could be done a bit better if people just think about GameMaker as a tool for making apps and
Yeah.
programs.
Yeah, I mean the name holds it back. Yeah, app maker. Well, why not? Why not?
Yeah, but I guess
Well,
then
it's probably
Windows
taken.
applications aren't really called apps.
Yeah, that's a whole.
I
Yeah,
remember browsing the community forums, and there's a guy who's using it as an
Image editor tool.
yeah, I saw
Which
that.
is a
Oh,
bit
actually,
fascinating.
Somebody who's in an architecture firm was using it as a renderer as well. So he had like a physically based renderer model, and then he just, oh man, some really. I don't know why GameMaker. That seems weird, but
Well,
like
people
great.
use Unity for that all the time.
Yeah, I mean it's provably doable. Yeah, it was just kind of interesting. So, do you want to do something similar with GameMaker?
Well, actually, I already am. Because I think I'm going to stay a hobbyist. Like, I'm never going to actually go to the not in at least not in the near future to a professional game dev thing. But right now, I'm more into research, electrical engineering research.
All right.
And I actually use GameMaker for like animated presentations. Like whenever there's something I want to show on screen with movement, I just use GameMaker because that's the fastest thing I know how to make
That's
movement
really
with.
interesting.
Does
So-
it beat PowerPoint?
Yeah, it does PowerPoint. Like really, I use GameMaker just like a PowerPoint. It does
Wow.
everything.
That's really interesting. You must be amazing at programming cutscenes.
I don't know, maybe not.
This just all look like slideshows.
There are
did this.
cutscenes over there. You'll see what kind of cutscenes I make. They're not very good.
So what? So you're all demonstrating games here today, aren't you?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. I mean, you
Kinda.
brought your laptop.
I'll probably,
along.
Yeah,
I'll probably
yeah.
show it off later. Brought my
Cool.
laptop.
So,
Everyone wants to see.
do you want to talk a little bit in turn about the projects that you're on? Advertise them a bit. Go on. It's your platform.
My platform. I have too many projects right now, but one of them I'm working on is a sort of local multiplayer game with there are 7 heroes in a quest, and one of them is a traitor. And has any of you played Legend of Zelda: Four Swords Adventure here? No, no one. It's cool.
I have.
And so there's the kind of system where you have one main screen where everything happens, and then each player has a small screen. In that game, it's the Game Boy Advance, so they have stuff that the others don't really see. And I'm making sort of a similar theme where each player has a small screen on screen,
Yeah.
and it's a bit about stealth in the sense that there's so much stuff happening on screen that you actually can't check what the others are doing, and it's supposed to end up into chaos as always, which is probably why I'm continuing this project.
It sounds a bit like the opposite of Ninja Party, where, like in Ninja Party, there's sufficiently small amount of information. Here, you've kind of gone the opposite direction.
Yeah. I'm trying to
It's
put
really
more.
interesting. What about yourself, Dave?
So for me, I'm working on a feature-length game. It's called Ship of 4 at the moment. It's a 1 to 4 player online cooperative game where you and 3 friends will be controlling the same spaceship. So it's a bit like FTL or Love is in a Dangerous Space-Time where...
Oh, I've played this one. It's
yeah. Where you'll kind of walk around the spaceship and you're driving the same spaceship, going through the same level, and you'll be able to customize your ship and all those kind of things.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
When do you think it's going to be out? It sounds like you're getting pretty close.
So the engine itself is really, really close, but I haven't done any levels and content. And I'm not underestimating how long that will take me. But I think I'd quite like to do like the whole kind of Kickstarter, early access, then do a launch on Steam. But yeah, I don't know how long the actual levels themselves will take to produce.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Once you finish pre-production, then you've got the
Yeah.
horrors of production to deal with.
Yeah, but I've got all of the netcode working, so you can play with your
fantastic.
friends. You can do couch co-op, so if you want 4 people on the same spaceship, that works. If you want, all your friends online, or 2 people on one computer and 2 people on another computer, that all works, and that's really lovely. I think that'll be a really big
I
part.
can tell you are a professional programmer.
Yeah,
Sounds very
do the hard
impressive.
stuff first,
Yeah,
netcode first.
Yeah, right. And Hannes, what about yourself?
Oh, this is the point where you think to yourself, shit, should have written an elevator pitch.
Yeah, right.
Always have an elevator.
Yeah, always have an elevator
Always have an
pitch.
elevator.
Yeah. So, my game is so far actually only just a walking sim RPG. And what I'm trying to achieve with it mostly is pushing the boundaries of what's possible in GameMaker in terms of 2D spriting Zelda-likes. So my game introduces a Z-axis that in the form it's working right now I haven't seen before. And as far as I'm aware, it's so far also one of the most advanced engines in that regard.
As far as I'm aware, yeah, it's a novel approach. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
pretty sure. but you never know.
Yeah, you
People
never
come out
know.
of the
I mean,
woodwork all the time,
the
right?
technology it's based on is pretty ancient, so they used
Yeah,
it back
well,
in the in the SNES times.
Or did they do the tilting? Because it works on
Yeah,
tilting sprites in
It
the
works
3D.
on tilting sprites
Yeah.
in 3D space, so that you
I
can
don't know.
properly walk behind and in front of stuff, and it looks 3D.
Yeah, that's really cool. I
And
didn't know
I'll
that.
show it off later.
You never
but
told me that. Anyway, sorry.
Technology is called billboarding, so most of my focus has gone into designing elements that work in 3D space, like reworking the whole pathfinding system. I can't use the built-in one, so I sat down and made my own 3D pathfinding system. All of the rendering took me about a month to set up. And I'm at a point now where the engine is mostly feature complete, and I can think about what the story is supposed to be actually about.
It's always good to have the technology there, though.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you get gripped by an idea, away
True.
you go. What sort of direction do you want to take it, in your heart of hearts?
There's a series of books that I'm reading. It's called Stormlight Archive.
Never
And
heard of it. What's it about?
It's a fantasy series about... It's placed in the medieval ages, kind of, and magic exists, of course, to make it a fantasy
Of
story.
course.
And there's a kind of a war going on between the ghost world, who interact with the humans based on something called a bond. So ghost bonds with the unit grants you special powers, like you can form a sword, or some of them can fly and attach objects to walls and stuff. And it's kind of the conflict between good and evil. And there's no real good and dark side to it. It's just two sides of the spirit world fighting against each other. And in my game, I'll try to incorporate this as well, where you've got a little follower who's granting you abilities. And if the follower's not around, you're pretty much powerless and are on the run.
That's kind of interesting. So when you say it's going to give you like little powers, do you have any ideas, any concepts for little things you want to slide into the game?
One of the most basic powers is being able to choose a weapon on the fly. So you'll be able to switch between a set of weapons, whichever is most suited for the situation. That's going to be a big part of it. Then little powers like using the verticality of the game. So sometimes you need a special jump to get up to an area that's previously inaccessible. Stuff like that.
Do you think it's going to be the kind of game where you come and collect followers? Is it like kind of a Pokemon-esque collection system to it?
No, it's not going to be a Pokemon-esque system. It's more of an unlock-based system because the interaction between you and your ghost is pretty vital.
Yeah. Otherwise, it would just be getting stuck with
No, you're
Pokemon
definitely
without
not.
cut or something in the wrong place. Yeah.
Yeah, you're definitely not going to look up, go around and collect new spirits as you go.
So, are you guys thinking about putting any of your games onto console specifically? So, Xbox One, PS4, other target platforms?
No.
For me, it's like the furthest thing from my mind. Like, I'll make a good game first, and if people say like, oh, you should port this over, or if I think it's a good fit, then it's something I would consider. But I think, making it a good game first is probably a better idea.
Yeah. What about yourself, Adrian?
I think I'm sticking to executables and maybe HTML5 so that Mac users can play, but I've seen how bad the ports on HTML5 are, so I don't know. I think that going to consoles is something, I'm not really going for consoles.
Yeah, it's understandable. It's quite a hurdle to overcome. So in terms of HTML5, Adrian obviously has a lot of experience with it. Have you guys played around with HTML5 much?
Oh, I love it. I mean,
It's
on
great.
my website, I try and do everything HTML5.
Through GameMaker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, really? I didn't know this. Oh, super
yeah.
cool.
I mean, when you make a game, that HTML5 is the easiest way to distribute it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can put it through like Newgrounds and Itch and itch.io, and you can get hundreds of thousands of players very easily. I mean, if it's a good game.
Yeah.
So I think that it's a really good way. Or even when I write tutorials, I think that displaying them as a HTML5 thing is a good way to show people this is how it works. These are the limitations because it might be something very complex, and HTML5 is a really good way to do that.
Yeah, having little HTML5 applets kind of, obviously embedded in the web page. I think, I agree. It's a really great way of doing it because it also forces your code to be efficient. HTML5 is not very fast.
No, it's not very fast.
Apart from stuff like drawing primitives. Drawing primitives, it's way faster.
I actually haven't tried doing 3D stuff.
Yeah.
I find
You
the
shouldn't.
opposite.
Is it? Oh, maybe I've got my wires crossed. Maybe I have. Have you experimented much with HTML5, Hannes?
Ooh. Apology to Yo-Yo Games if they're watching. I bought it for $100.
Oh god.
I booted up a little test project that literally just said hi, and the text was indent it wrong.
Oh,
and it's like,
no.
yeah, this is not starting off good.
Yeah.
And then
I actually know where this comes from, and I can fix it, but it's not easy.
Damn it.
It's actually just a bug in the JS.
No, it's actually that the font isn't loaded correctly, and it never loads the font again, and because it uses a really different, stupid font with a really high spacing. I think that's the problem we have.
Huh.
And I've seen it happen. I've
There we
seen
go.
everything.
Well, maybe this will work because all the centers were completely off.
I've
Just
seen an
not
issue where
respecting
on HTML5, if you try to draw text and there are 2 spaces in it, it glitches your game.
Okay.
If you have 2 consecutive spaces, it's just not happening.
The next talk we'll do will just be bug fixes.
Yeah,
People
just-
can bring their problems and we'll debug it live.
We'll debug everything.
It's actually not a bad idea.
That's a good game show.
Yeah. Good game show. Who can bring the most unsolvable GameMaker bug?
So the next issue was I tried to boot up the game that I had made.
Yeah.
And since it uses 3D techniques, it obviously didn't work at all.
Yeah.
I got an age-long list of errors.
Yeah. They're significant as well. They're like big ones. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stuff like instance create layer does not
Yeah,
work.
it didn't work.
This is GMS2, but it doesn't like the layer system. It
Yeah.
needs to be instance create
Is it
depth.
cap sensitive?
No, it just doesn't like the layer system. It needs to be depth. You
Yeah.
need to create an instance at depth, not a layer.
Yeah. I'm okay with that. I mean,
That's what
Well, this is because you've used 1.4 so much.
I know, right?
I'm really happy with the layer system in 2, but I think it should kind of translate to what they do in HTML5.
Yeah, that was a weird one. It does feel like the HTML5 stuff was perhaps rushed out earlier this year. It does feel that way, because I ran into a lot of bugs as well. So in terms of the new layer system in GMS2, what's the take on this?
Oh,
Yeah.
So-
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what the rest of the community's been doing, but I've been. I assume that the instance create layer is a string comparison. So I've been actually creating an object and keeping all of the IDs in that object, which I call object layer. So that's how I've been getting around it. So this object will keep all of my layers on it with their ID. And then when I do instance create layer, I can just reference that object.
Huh.
I don't know how other people have been doing it. Or
Sounds like how the compatibility system works.
Yes,
I think.
actually, yeah,
It's very,
just-
very similar.
yeah, actually it is.
Yeah, that's
But
interesting.
I haven't checked to see how other people are dealing with the new layers.
Yeah.
That was just my initial thought.
Well, have a chat. So, we'll find out.
Yeah.
So, final question before we move on and we have a little break. What do you see your future with GameMaker being? Do you want to keep with it, or is this something where it's going to springboard you into another set of careers, another set of tools?
I think I'm going to keep GameMaker, because I'm too lazy to switch to something more advanced like Unity or Unreal Engine. GameMaker is the fastest tool for me, and I think it will remain the fastest tool for ever. And I don't really plan on going into professional game dev, so yeah, I'll keep to GameMaker.
Fantastic. Dave?
So for me, GameMaker's not going to go anywhere. I mean, for 2D development, it is the fastest tool. You know, you can't make an app that's 2D in any other language faster, I wouldn't have thought. But yeah, no, like I said, if I was to write my own language, it would look just like GML. So yeah.
That's very interesting. Hannes?
I wholeheartedly agree. I've downloaded Unity and Godot and had a little play around, and I quickly realized that I'm just so familiar with GameMaker and how it functions. I'm that much faster prototyping in it.
Yeah.
And as long as I'm going to be a hobbyist, I'm going to keep sticking with it.
Fantastic.
It is worth saying that GameMaker has a fantastic community around it. Like the community support, either through Discord or the forums or the Reddit, I think it's really helpful. So it definitely has that going for it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you very much, Adrian. Thank you very much, Dave. Thank you very much, Hannes. Some wonderful opinions there, some interesting ideas. Your games are dotted all around, and I think there are a few other games as well. I do encourage you all to play each other's games. The best part about being in a community. If you do see anything that you particularly enjoy, if you just want to talk about the event, use the hashtag GMMeetup. It's good. And also, if you could give us a follow on Twitter, sign up to the Facebook group as well, and also check your emails if you use the Eventbrite, and please give your correct email.
And get tickets from the Eventbrite.
Oh, and also, always
Yeah,
get tickets from the
get
Eventbrite.
tickets.
We cooked a lot of meatballs today, and we knew how much to cook because we knew the number of people coming. Seems minor, but it really does help us all out. So we're going to have a 10-minute break whilst we swap over and get Quang ready. Thank you very much to our speakers here, our interviewees, and thank you very much all for listening.